Welcome to 843 TV. I'm your host, Will Wareham, coming to you today from the City Hall in downtown Beaufort. Today I'm going to be joined by the Mayor of Beaufort, Billy Kaiserling, City Manager Bill Prokop, and the Director of Parking, Linda Roper, all with the City of Beaufort. And we're going to talk about the issue of parking in downtown Beaufort. So stick around for more 843 TV.
Where communities come together to speak.
.843 TV, where Bluffton comes to speak.
Where Spring Island comes to speak.
Where Hilton Head Island comes to speak.
Where Beaufort comes to speak.
.843 TV,
where communities come to speak. Welcome to 843 TV. We're coming to you from City Hall in downtown Beaufort, South Carolina, and I'm joined by Bill Prokop, who's the City Manager for the City of Beaufort. Bill, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to talk a little bit about parking today.
Right.
And parking is important.
Parking's very important.
And you know, downtown parking in any city is usually a hot topic.
Exactly.
Particularly in Beaufort. Why not just have free parking? Let people park anywhere.
I think there's a misconception on parking, that parking is a way cities or private industry tries to collect money.
Yeah.
When technically parking is a marketing arm of any business. You know, we buy a house or you locate a store, number one's location, location, location.
That's right.
If we have a store on Main Street and we didn't have parking, that location isn't too good, because unfortunately every one of us wants to park as close to where we want to go that we can. And parking is a critical part of every retailer's marketing, just as their advertising campaign. Again, as I said, if we took all of Bay Street and said, okay, there was no parking in Bay Street or Port Royal or Scott, etc., our merchants would be complaining, because where would people park?
Right.
An average parking turnover that you always look for is 85%. So that you can have your spaces filled 85% of the time, leaving 15% so people can find places to park convenient to where they're going. So parking really isn't a necessary evil. It's really part of every retailer's marketing business.
Yeah.
And to give you an example, recently we were extended during the holiday season, free 2-hour parking.
Right.
We actually had merchants call, say, what are you doing that for? Because this is not helping our business, because people come to enjoy maybe the park.
Right.
And they'll park in front of my store. That means that I can't have customers come in.
And so the turnover was lower.
So the turnover's lower. So it is really, free parking would cost merchants, and it wouldn't be convenient for the customers. So that's why you don't have free parking. And as I said, I go back and just finished reading the history of Beaufort, 3 volumes. In the early 40s, when the Marine base was really building up and it went from like 5,000 people to 14,000.
Yes.
The comment in that book is one of the biggest issues was parking problems on Bay Street.
Really?
That's 60 or 75 years ago. And in the meantime, we've had either 7 or 9 different parking studies. Every one of them said parking was critical, and we need to do something. So free parking is not an answer.
Free parking is not an option, because they'll just park there and stay.
That's correct.
Okay, so talking about these studies, you had a task force last year.
Yes.
That performed a study in Beaufort. What did they find?
Study, I have the report right here. It found several interesting things. Probably the first thing that really came out that shocked many of the committee members was that the amount of parking spaces taken up by employees of the downtown merchants and restaurants. You have to consider we have over 400, maybe close to 500 employees working downtown.
Right.
If you took half of them have cars and park, they're parking somewhere. And in many cases, they're parking right in front of the establishment where they work. Mm-hmm. That means that their customer can't go there. So that was one of the things that they pointed out. The second thing they pointed out is over the last, I believe, either 5 or 7 years, we have lost 140 parking spaces, because we have done away with parking as we had started to get new infill. The businesses, that we didn't require that they had to have parking in there, so parking spaces got lost, or parking lots got converted into, or where there was free parking, into some new buildings, etc. So as we grow, we need more parking, but we've been losing it. And the same thing with some of the private parking that's been taken on. Some of this availability of parking was taken off the public records because people purchased it for private parking. So that was another thing. The other that they found, and they did a fantastic job. They studied this for 6 months. They included people that do not live in Beaufort, that come and shop in Beaufort. They had merchants, they had retailers, they had the commercial people, they had whoever on the committee. They did in-depth surveys, and they found that in the end, the average person was parking just under 2 hours. I think it was 1.78 hours. They also found that by having more turnover, like let's say Bay Street, you have a limit of 2 hours. As you move out, your limit gets bigger so that you can have 4 hours next and further away, but your pricing's adjusted.
Right.
So all of these things, they've made a recommendation to council, and we've implemented almost every recommendation that they had. In fact, just recently was approved by council, with the exception of one, and that is where they said we should look at our zoning to require, if somebody's going to build or do some infill, that they have to provide parking, to stop taking parking off the street.
Right.
But we're very happy with the report, and we're moving forward with it.
Very good. So now, as city manager, which is your position, what do you see as the greatest challenge for Beaufort's downtown parking?
Greatest challenge is to be able to have affordable parking, and right now to be able to find parking where employees can go and have at a reasonable distance, at a reasonable price, so that we're freeing the spaces near the merchants for their customers.
And really quickly, do you think that like a parking garage would solve this problem?
Parking garage will help. And certainly as we continue to grow, and the critical thing is we have to expand Bay Street. What I mean by that, downtown, as the mayor always says, is from Bay Street to Boundary Street. Our downtown is going to grow. Therefore, parking is going to have to be able to grow with that and be in different locations.
Wow. Well, certainly a lot to talk about on this subject. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Enjoyed it.
Thank you. And stick around for another segment of 843 TV.